going to jump right into things then. All right. Hey, everyone. Second to last class. Oh, my God. Almost there, but we're going over a very important topic today, which are your project goals. So, maybe when you start a project, decide what it is you actually want to be doing on this project. There's a lot of projects I've been a part of where the goal was pretty much just, we'll figure it out as we go. We'll figure it out as we go. Or it's some abstract kind of concept of like, what if it is a RTS and a flight simulator at the same time? And I've found a lot of these times, your proper project goals, your overall, the end result really suffers. And you see this all the times in the games industry. So I want to dive into here because it is such an important thing to try to figure out. So, starting us off with a little bit of a quote here. It's, "Do not seek to follow in the footsteps of the wise. Seek what they sought." If I'm trying to copy someone else's success, then I don't wind up in a place of value. What I have to do is, if I am to take an inspiration from a project, go after the things that they themselves were seeking out, the objectives they set for themselves, not technically just copy them. So oftentimes with starting a project, the temptation is just to start or to copy someone else. We'll just get things on screen, then we'll figure it out. It's kind of like starting off on an adventure and not knowing what your destination is. Just saying, we'll figure it out as we just head off in a random direction. So when starting something new, first thing you want to do is decide where it is that you want to be going. Before I go on a trip, what's my destination on this thing? It can't just be, I'm gonna be go on a trip. So, thing is, when you're starting with a new design or project, you want to be picking your destination. The important thing is, generally, you will wind up where you aim yourself. It is choosing that important direction of where you want to be going is generally where you wind up in the end. This is one of the reasons why the role of director is so important on a project, is that a director doesn't dictate what everyone should be doing. The director sets the direction of where everyone should be orienting themselves. Oh, we're going over this way. This is our end goal. This is the overall experience we want to be having. The director is then responsible for making sure that we're hitting those goals on time, on budget, to quality. So, the thing is, you want to find an original goal, because otherwise I'm just going somewhere that someone else has already been. I will get there too, but someone's already beaten me to it. So the thing, if you're copying someone, you're following, not leading. And also, you won't know how to pivot. If I'm not able to if I'm copying someone else's destination and I can't make it all the way there, oftentimes you don't have a backup plan. Because you're like, oh, our entire goal was to get to this specific technical objective. When you can't get there, you're like, well, I don't really know exactly how we're supposed to pivot with this because, I said we're going to get to X on the map. I'm trying to get to Calgary from Edmonton. I haven't been able to get to Calgary, and I have now failed in my objective because I don't know what the overall, because I've defined it so specifically, when I can't achieve that objective, I don't really know exactly what it is I want to be doing next, or how to pivot on that overall. All right, so good example. Think of this kind of like driving. So you go where you're looking and you can't get to where you're going just by following someone else. So example is that in driving, if there's something you're trying to avoid, you do not look at it. You look at where you want to be going instead. If I look at the thing I'm trying to avoid, I will end up just subconsciously steering into that. And also, if I'm trying to get to my destination, I can't get there just by following someone else. I have to figure out what destination is, and then that's how I'm going to get there. So, let's jump into this. So, you're trying to start a new design. We're going to be designing a combat system. You think yourself, okay, I want to be the best combat system possible. And I'm going to look around at all the great combat systems that are out there. You know what? God of War's got a really good combat system. Let's do God of War. We're just going to copy God of War. It's well designed. It's popular. We will make some modifications where we need to just to make it more original and have it stand out a little bit in the market. But largely what we're doing is we are copying what God of War has done, and then we're just going to add our own little spin on it. So it's not an exact copy, but you know, this is our overall direction that we've set on this. This is our goal. Because we want to copy what God of War is doing. That's how we're going to design our good combat system. So you get to work on this. You replicate the combos, you replicate the animations, you replicate the mechanics. You've got a pretty good start on getting a combat system very similar to God of War's. You know, it's all coming together. There we go. But then we run into a problem. Oh no. We got a technical problem, as you'll oftentimes have when working on a video game. Teams struggling to get the melee combat working. You said we're going to copy God of War's combat, which is very melee heavy, and the team's struggling to actually get that melee fundamental work. And melee combat's actually quite challenging, especially in a 3D third-person game. For first person, even more difficult. If you're writing fanfics, then you're just copying. Yeah, Nadine, actually, good comment there. It's largely like you're writing fan fiction when you're doing your design, if you're just copying someone else. And also, there's a problem as well. As we're developing out all of our software and our general kind of tech stack for the game, we're going to run into problems, things that aren't working properly. And I've actually worked on some of these projects where it's like, look, we're copying this exact feature. And then we realized, oh yeah, that exact feature took the team 5 years of custom software development, and we got to get this done in a year. We can't have that exact feature. But leadership's like, nope, we need that exact thing because that's the thing that made the game a success. Oftentimes, it really isn't an exact feature. Mario is not successful because he's got a good jump. A good jump is just something that Mario has. You know? If I copy Mario's jump, I have not gotten Mario. I've just gotten an element of Mario. So, team struggling to get melee combat working. So, what do we do now? Because all of our plans were based on, you know, copying God of War. We can't use the combos. We can't use the animations. And we can't use the mechanics that we have. This is going to be a big problem for us. So quick question in the chat. How can we distinguish between what players say they want versus what their behavior actually reveals? Oh, always pay attention to their behavior. Also, don't ask players what they want. Ask their thoughts and their feedback. If you ask players what they want, they will simply tell you what they previously played. What's the next game that you want? Well, I want something that's like Metroid. I want something that's like Animal Crossing. You know, and if you're doing that, you never get to Minecraft, you never get to Tetris. Part of the job as being a creative and development professional is being able to look down the road and saying, okay, based on what's happening here and over here and these developments in the industry, we can probably get a really exciting experience for players if we seek out an original direction of X, Y, or Z. Oftentimes, a lot of fantastically successful ideas are based on concepts that are so avant-garde and so against the grain, they actually seem like they shouldn't work. Pokemon is the most successful media franchise in history. It's such a fucking weird concept. Kids go around collecting bugs and have them fight against each other. That sounds like it should be wildly niche. It's a worldwide obsession. No one knows what's going to be successful. This is one of the things as being a creative, is you're like, you know what? This could be an interesting idea. No one's doing this yet. I think we got something fresh here. So again, asking players what do they want, they'll just tell you what they've already played. If I ask people, who are drinking Coke, what would you like instead? They will simply say, I don't know, better Coke. It's that's what they're focused on. So, this is a bit of a problem. So we can't use any of the stuff that we've worked on because we defined our goal as just copying someone else or going where they've gone. We technically copied them, but then when one element of our tech stack, and a pretty big element, melee combat, doesn't come together, we're kind of stuck, and this is kind of the reaction from the team, from the design team. As a professional, you'll absolutely have these moments in your career. So your project schedule slips. Costs start to overrun. We either got to make a new game or forcing the old system to work. I know so many projects that will just force the old system to work. They're like, well, we can get through this brick wall if we just hit it at the right angle. We'll get through this and get to the other side. We just got to keep throwing bodies at the problem. It's really wasteful, and you just wind up with a pale imitation of the thing you're copying anyways. So, but what if, you put this out there, we approach things differently? There is another way. So, we're designing the combat system. Redux. Instead, let's copy God of War's inspirations. Let's look at the things that inspired God of War for their design. So instead of replicating combos and animation mechanics, we're looking at replicating the feeling of aggression, a risk-reward system, an element of overall push-forward combat. These are the things we want to focus on. These are our goals. These are our objectives now. So when Melee doesn't work, we can actually pivot because nothing in Melee working or not working invalidates any of these things. We can still do this stuff. We just have to figure out a different way of doing it. Instead of us hitting a wall, we are able to just go around the barrier because our objective isn't a specific goal. It's an overall high-level outcome. So we can pivot, which is great. We can still keep aggression. We can still keep risk-reward. We can still keep push-forward combat because certainly this works with Melee. It works without Melee as well. Let's do a focus on explosions, hurling objects at enemies. I can do lots of combat approaches that replicate that feeling of God of War without me actually having to do Melee. So example here, Rambo with his exploding bow. Generally a pretty close emotional overlap with Kratos, but we don't have to have the melee. We still have the aggression, we still have push forward, we still have risk reward, but this is just gonna be based on, we can put in systems based on explosions, so I have to be very careful about maintaining my distance. It's exciting, it's big, I can have a system where I have to go into the battlefield, pick up objects and throw them at enemies, making it a physical, making it aggressive, and still all this without a melee combat system. But we're maintaining that feel because we've set our objective, our project goals at the proper high level of abstraction. So a couple comments from Nadine. So I'm translating this as you can copy themes, but you can't copy a specific writing style. Yes. There's actually a really interesting example of this from film I found out about recently. There's a really interesting experiment, and that was, I think it was 94 or 96. I think it was Gus Van Sant, excellent filmmaker, did a shot-by-shot recreation of Alfred Hitchcock's film Psycho, and just did it in color. Said, we're gonna replicate everything about Psycho. And it wound up to be a really bland, disengaging film. There was something in the creative process that when you're copying it exactly, you do not replicate it. a lot of the human experience exists outside of mathematics and algorithms. And we don't know what that is. It's part of that great miasma of the subconscious. You know, we don't really understand how the subconscious works, but it dictates a lot of what we do. So yes, that's the thing, is that if I'm trying to technically copy something, I'm losing out on the overall experience. If I'm trying to copy the style or the experience, that's much better overall. So because you set your goal as an experience, it was still valid when you had to pivot. Like we could still, we have to make it 2D. It can still work. We can still do this kind of stuff. We want it to be multiplayer. Yeah, still works. You know, it's got to be in VR. Yeah, still works. This is far more flexible and far more efficient than if I was just specifically copying out a feature set. So this is what drags down most projects. It's generally like the team is working so hard on feature-led design, they just get dragged down. This is one of the biggest inefficiencies in the industry right now. A lot of teams really struggle to understand how they're to set their overall project goals. But even you as a designer, on your overall feature goals, if you're working on a level, what's the experience of the level? If I'm working on a navigation system, what's the experience of the navigation system? That way, when you've got a pivot or the schedule slips or you've got overall problems, you will understand how to still deliver that experience even if you don't have the exact features that you want. This is something that I've working on now when I interview new designers and give them a design test. I start off with the overall feeling or the experience that I want them to replicate. You know, it's like for like a level design test, I'll give level designers a level with a set number of building blocks, and I'll say, okay, this has to be put this together to form a capture the flag level, but I want you to focus on a sense of tension. Cool. Exact same formats, but now I want you to focus on a sense of navigational freedom. And I just see how well they can work within that space. Because if they're able to get a feeling across with a limited set of tools while still following mechanical objectives, I know that, you know, they're a level designer I'm going to be pretty comfortable with. Okay. So, yeah, so this is still a big issue. It's still a problem a lot of companies really struggle with. It is so much easier and so much more comforting to be able to just copy someone else's work as opposed to try to come up with an original objective yourself. It really becomes a problematic crutch. And it's, you know, it's oh, just a second here, sorry. So anyways, it becomes a bit of a problematic crutch, and it's one of the biggest issues I think that leads to project slippage and crunch and budget overruns and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So I want to give you guys another example just to, you know, drive this home a little bit more. So I want to give an example from cooking just to show this, this overall project goal setting in action. So I want you to cook a meal. We've got a set of ingredients here. This is the stuff that's in your kitchen. And I want you to make French toast. That's pretty straightforward. We got our bread, we got our eggs, maybe we could do something with the bacon there. Probably can't use the lettuce. Maybe I can use the sugar. We've got some beef bone. I don't think I can really use the ramen noodles, but there got a couple options here for French toast. But you know, someone in the kitchen ordering screwed up and we are missing these ingredients. I can no longer make French toast. I'm now stuck and I can't move forward on my objective because I've set it so specifically to a singular rational objective. On the other hand, let's say my objective is I want to make a decadent breakfast, which includes French toast. You could say French toast is decadent. It's deep fried eggs. It's bread wrapped in deep fried egg or fried egg. Okay, so I don't have these ingredients. That certainly puts a bit of a hitch in my step, but I've got some durian there. Durian's a rather intense sweet flavor. We've got some sugar. We've got the beef bone. We can fry the beef bone a little bit or get the marrow out of it, do something with that. Like we've still got options. It is not ideal, but I do have a potential path forward because I've set my goal as an experience and not a specific measured outcome of French toast. So I can still go ahead, make my decadent breakfast. And I can set the goals differently as well. If I make a light breakfast or an exotic breakfast, I got all these kind of options options available to me. So why does this even work? How does this, this is, when I get into the exact specifics of why is it that this is effective? And overall, a lot of this is that the brain deals really well with abstraction. Abstraction's a more effective tool for thinking about a problem than rational specifics. So our brains, this thing we're, using quite a bit of, it really thinks about the world in terms of abstractions. So when you think about something high level, you're thinking about it in terms that are overall abstract. And specific abstract goals of an experience is generally how your brain likes to pursue problems. To get into the kind of wet works of how the brain works, you've got as I said, you've got your limbic system, which drives a lot of your overall cognition and your emotion. You then have your prefrontal cortex, which is how I think about rational problems. It's how I do math equations and that kind of stuff. Very little of your brain is actually dedicated to rational problem solving. That does take up a lot of calories because it's quite intensive mental effort. But a lot of your brain is based on subconscious cognition, and a lot of that is based around abstraction. So when you can present a goal or a problem as an abstraction, your brain just works with it better. It becomes far more flexible. We'll start feature-wise. Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, and that's the thing. Is like it's one of those solutions that honestly it's almost like childishly simple, and a lot of people will push back against it because they'll be like, well, no, I want to have that specific measurable goal, so I can have kind of that in a certain way. Which if I give myself a specific measurable goal, I am abdicating my responsibility, because if it didn't work, then I can just say, oh, we didn't hit the exact formula or the exact equation or that kind of thing. If I'm saying this is about an experience, that's much more on me to deliver the experience. That's also part of your job as a professional. It is on you. You are responsible. That's why you earn a salary for these things. That's why people show up, is because you've put in the work to figuring out the experience for the customer, for the player. All right. So, just gonna do a quick summary of what we discussed here. So, overall, don't set your goals as where someone's already been. It's, with that, that's the thing, is it's on top of the issues that you'll run into creatively, you're then trying to compete on an already dominated market. Like there are so many examples of companies just copying what other companies did, and you probably haven't heard of most of them because most of them fail to make an impact and most of them fail. If I'm competing with Coca-Cola, I don't compete by making RC Cola. I want to be making Red Bull. I want to be making something different. That's the thing, even with Red Bull, it is, in my humble opinion, not a great beverage experience, but it's got a feeling, it's got a vibe, it's got an attitude about it, and that's generally how they were able to compete, because they had a clear idea what their identity was supposed to be. Not just Coke, but cheaper or different or what have you. You also don't want to set your goals as a set of features, as we said, because then like those features don't land. You don't understand the experience, so you won't know how to pivot. And then you're just going to probably just try to push your way through that brick wall and just waste everyone's time and wind up at the end burning a whole bunch of resources and wind up with an experience that is a shallow imitation of what you're copying. So you want to be able to pursue a high level experience. Gives you the chance to pivot, also gives you a creative space that you yourself can own overall. All right. So that's actually the class. We got through this material far quicker than I was thinking. Does anyone have any questions about this? Anyone in the chat? All right. Chat, going once. Going twice. Going thrice. No one's there. All right. I think in that case, okay. All right. There we go. All right. We're going to wrap it up then. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. And I will catch you guys next week for our final class. All right. See ya.